Government and Houthis conclude talks on prisoner exchange today. The United Nations says $28 million still needed to diffuse oil from Safar tanker. Famine continues to threaten Yemenis nationwide. Good evening. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. I am Abir Ali and you are watching the English news. Under the support of the United Nations, a new round of talks between the Yemeni government and Houthis begin in Jordan in order to discuss the issue of exchanged prisoners. This report has more.
A fresh round of negotiations between the Yemeni government and the Houthi militia kicked off the Jordanian capital of Amman under the patronage of the UN. In the two-day talks, which will conclude on Saturday, the delegations from the two rival sides will discuss the issue of exchanging prisoners and seek solutions to the obstacles to the implementation of a previous agreement in this regard. The source said both the two discussed the visit to each other's prisoners after the planned visit in May was postponed. It described the atmosphere of the meeting as positive but did not provide any further details. Majid Fadali, the spokesperson for the government negotiating delegation, expressed optimism for the success of the talks in a tweet, emphasizing the objective of securing the release of all prisoners and abductees on the basis of exchange. However, last month, the Yemeni government had rejected participation in future prisoner exchange negotiations with the Houthis, citing the Iran-backed militia group's refusal to disclose the location of prominent politician Mohammed Qahtan, who was abducted by the Houthis 8 years ago in the capital Sana'a, and their denial of visitation rights to his family. According to the government, the Houthis have remained unresponsive to repeated appeals from the UN, local and international human rights groups, as well as the politician's family for access to Qahtan. UN-sponsored negotiations between the Yemeni government and the Houthi rebels in March successfully led to the release of nearly 900 prisoners in April, marking the second largest prisoner exchange between the warring sides since a civil war broke out more than 8 years ago. High-profile figures, including Nasser Mansour Hadi, the brother of former President Abdurrabbu Mansour Hadi, and Mahmoud al-Subayhi, the country's former defense minister, were among those who were freed.
The Houthi militia refused to allow the International Red Cross team to visit its prisons and secret detention centers in Sana'a. Human rights sources said that a Houthi militia prevented the International Red Cross team from visiting its prisons and secret detention centers in Sana'a. The head of the Yemeni Network for Rights and Freedoms confirmed that the Houthis refused to visit the International Red Cross team and did not allow them to know the conditions of the forcibly disappeared. The Houthi militia ended the mobilization for children and adolescents in the summer centers and the areas under their control. They also concluded them with the military parades for the students of these centers and forced them to swear allegiance and disavowals to the group. Local and educational sources confirmed that the Houthi militia finished the courses of enticement and mobilization for children in most of the summer centers in the hijacked capital Sana'a. The transfer of oil from a broken-down vessel off the coast of Yemen that marine salvage specialists have dubbed a ticking time bomb is finally underway. However, the United Nations still needs $28 million to cover all procedure expenditures. This report has more.
The transfer of oil from a broken-down vessel off the coast of Yemen that marine salvage specialists have dubbed a ticking time bomb is finally underway. The decaying tanker has been sitting dormant for years with over 1 million barrels of crude oil on board, but it has been inaccessible due to Yemen's ongoing conflict. The Iran-backed Houthi militia that controls the area around the ship agreed in September to support a UN mission to transfer the ship's cargo to a younger tanker. An inspection found that Yemen's National Oil Company's 47-year-old FSO Safer is in such disrepair that it could blow up or fall apart at any time, causing an environmental and humanitarian disaster that could cost tens of billions of dollars to clean up. Increased worldwide concern prompted plans for a Dutch team to begin work on the tanker as part of a mission that would eventually cost more than $140 million. When engineers and underwater bomb disposal specialists boarded the tanker 2 weeks earlier, they discovered that while the tanker's overall condition wasn't as terrible as they had anticipated, it was still the worst example of a live oil tanker the crew had ever seen. An initial assessment found that oxygen is still present in all of the Safer's fuel tanks, making them highly explosive. The next hurdle will be to sail the replacement vessel, the 15-year-old Nautica, along the Safer to transfer the oil. The risk in this scenario is that the oil will leak if there is a fracture in the hull of the old ship. According to UN official David Gressly, the UN has received $115 million for the operation, but still needs another $28 million to cover all expenditures. Due to the rise in sharp prices following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the Nautica ended up costing $55 million, about double what the UN had anticipated.
This is what the long journey was all about. The Safer sitting just off the coast of Hodeida with a dangerous load. The operation will start tomorrow to make the Safer safe, to pump its oil, and to clean the Safer for scrapping. We have arrived, and with thanks to all our partners and donors, particularly thanks to the government of Yemen. The Safer is the biggest environmental threat to the Red Sea at the moment. We are on our way to pump the oil from this dangerous ship with the help of this Endeavour ship that I'm on. The Nautica, our second ship, the tanker, will come to the side of this ship, and Smith Salvage will pump the oil from one into the other.
A soldier was killed and 6 others were wounded in an explosion that targeted military forces in Abiyan Governorate. Local sources said that 3 explosions with explosive devices targeted Siham al-Sharq forces in Farah area on the Amran Road. The sources pointed out that the explosions of the explosive devices resulted in 1 murder and 6 others seriously wounded. On the International Day Against Famine, international warnings rise about the specter of famine that threatens millions of Yemenis. Millions of Yemenis are unable to secure food for their families as a result of the deterioration of economic and living conditions and the absence of solutions. This report has more details.
On the International Day Against Famine, Yemen is facing a devastating famine crisis as millions of Yemenis can no longer afford to provide food for themselves and their children. This made millions of children suffer from malnutrition as the war destroyed the country's economy, infrastructure, and water system. Millions of Yemeni families are struggling to save their children from the specter of famine, like this mother who is doing everything she can to save her children who are suffering from malnutrition and the danger of death.
Our financial condition is hard. My husband is disabled while my son was held in the intensive care unit for 6 months. We're struggling with no source of income and a host of diseases.
The complexities of ending the crisis and the flattering peace efforts in Yemen have deepened the human tragedy, especially with the continued deterioration of the situation. The economic and living conditions in the country have been lost, and the state of displacement continues, along with decline in humanitarian aid. It disrupted the means of livelihood and made millions of Yemenis face the specter of famine.
In Yemen, we are suffering all crises, and the spread of diseases exists not only in Ma'rib, but in all governorates. Infrastructure and medical services are totally devastated, and people here do not have awareness to face all these obstacles.
The United Nations expects cases of severe hunger in Yemen to increase 5 times this year compared to the previous year, at a time when the United Nations Children's Fund has warned of the specter of famine that threatens 6 million children. The bank indicated in its report that 14 million people are exposed to famine and disease, and they are in need of urgent humanitarian assistance. A catastrophic event that requires urgent measures from the international community to address the crisis and end the war in the country.
Yemen, the worst famine the world has seen in 100 years. Right now, over 8 million people are facing starvation. Since the beginning of the war, 85,000 children have died due to the lack of food. We cannot allow this to continue. The Yemeni people can't wait.
4 illegal immigrants with Sudanese nationality arrived on the coast of Makha, western Yemen, fleeing the war. According to the source in Makha Security, 4 Sudanese came from Eritrea on the back of one of the leaders of the coast, southern of Makha. It pointed out that the 4 Sudanese made it clear that they had come to Yemen to escape the war in Sudan and to seek asylum. The forces stationed north of Lahj Governorate repelled an attempt to the target of Houthi militia on the strategic side. A field military source said that the forces stationed in Karish front repelled an attack attempt by the Houthi militia on Mount Hamala. According to the source, the forces fought violent clashes with medium and heavy weapons, during which the militia suffered heavy losses. The Houthi militia continue to occupy the oldest and most prestigious sports club in Bayda Governorate. Local sources in Bayda reported that members of al-Houthi militia continue to forcibly attack Al-Ahmadi Sport Club, refusing to return it to its management. The sources pointed out that the militia members refused to vacate the club and turn it into, 7 years ago, into a prison for the abducted and forcibly disappeared. Coming next in the news. In Hadramaut, Karma Film Festival for Human Rights kicks off in Mukalla. Welcome back. To compete with winning the Buran Award for the Best Documentary Film, Best Narrative Film and Best Yemeni Film, the Karama Yemen Festival for Human Rights Films was launched in Mukalla, Hadramaut Governorate, in the presence of a large public and artistic audience full of performances and activities that bear human rights issues in their contents. This report has more.
Based on the importance of introducing human rights issues and defending them through cinematic shows, Mukalla City in Hadramaut Governorate has witnessed the activities of the Dignity of Yemen Festival for Human Rights Films, which was inaugurated under the slogan Achievable Right. The 4th session will last for 14 days and is devoted to presenting a number of activities and performances related to human rights issues.
سعيدة حقا بأن مهرجان كرامة اليمن يقام في دورته الرابعة هنا في مدينة.
I'm happy that the Dignity of Yemen Festival is taking place in its 4th session here in the city of Mukalla in Hadramaut Governorate as the main and official opening. This festival continues for 14 days, 5 days here in the city of Mukalla, 3 days in Aden, 2 days in Taiz, and then 9 virtual days for those who were not able to attend and watch the movies directly. I really enjoyed every movie that was presented here in the festival.
24 countries participated in the festival with 18 fictional and short documentaries, including 8 Yemeni films and the others for filmmakers from other countries. Each one has its own themes, goals, artistic and imaginative perspective, which contribute to communicating ideas and visions related to human rights issues in an easy and interesting way.
Of course, the Dignity of Yemen Festival is an amazing event because it tries to bring together all visions and include everything that has been written about human rights and the dignity of the Yemeni citizens. This is the beautiful thing about it. The film screenings included different schools of directing in script, deep, superficial and documentary films. I encourage and salute these films because they develop the imagination of the audience.
A large audience attended the Yemen Dignity Film Festival for Human Rights Films during its stay in the city of Mukalla, which reinforces the importance of dialogue, participation and understanding of all issues related to human rights violations, especially in Yemen, where these issues have become far from the eyes of the world today, so that film and art are the closest means of expressing them.
Dozens of farmers in Adala and Eb incurred heavy losses as a result of an additional increase imposed by the Houthi militia on diesel. This comes in addition to the increase in the prices of agriculture, fertilizers and pesticides by more than 500% compared to the period before Houthi. Dozens of farmers confirmed that merchants in rural areas sell the price of a 20-liter diesel canister between 13 to 15,000 riyals. Medical sources revealed a great corruption in most hospitals in Sana'a and widespread looting of the revenues of those hospitals, in addition to the arrest of a number of employees and medical personnel, according to directives from the heads of some hospitals, due to what was revealed of looting and forgery by those heads. Medical sources confirmed that some services and health centers have stopped in 5 large government hospitals. The high expense of living aggravates the hardship of citizens in Ma'rib Governorate. Prices for staples such as vegetables and fruits have hit all-time highs, outstripping the citizens' purchasing ability. This report has more.
A stagnant recession has struck Ma'rib's markets, which used to bustle with crowds of people seeking fresh fruits and vegetables. With a rapid hike in prices, however, many families are forced to forego an essential food group. Tomatoes, for example, a staple ingredient, now cost 4,000 riyals per kilogram.
نشكر قناة اليمن اليوم لاهتمامها بما يخص الوطن والمواطن.
We would like to thank Yemen Today TV for their involvement in civilian matters. Vegetable and fruit prices have climbed to exorbitant costs, with a kilogram of tomatoes costing up to 4,000 riyals and a load basket costing up to 45,000.
The finances of Yemenis who continue to endure years of bloody conflict are no longer able to keep up with the soaring prices of basic commodities. According to reports, a number of causes have contributed to this price increase, including blocked roads as a result of ongoing fighting in regions connecting the southern and northern Yemeni provinces, where many vegetables and fruits are grown.
الأسعار يعني من المرتبات منقطعة عن بعض الموظفين.
Salaries have been suspended for many government employees. Meanwhile, prices continue to soar and citizens can't keep up with them.
Transportation of vegetables and fruits from neighboring provinces into major cities such as Ma'rib has been hampered in recent years due to an increase of violence that has resulted in the damage of critical highways and bridges. Yemen remains one of the most food insecure countries globally, mainly driven by the impact of conflict and economic decline, with 3.2 million people experiencing high levels of acute food insecurity in government areas.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. Government and Houthis conclude talks on prisoner exchange today. The United Nations says $28 million is still needed to defuse oil from Safar tanker. Famine continues to threaten Yemenis nationwide. This is the end of the news. It was Abir Ali, and thank you for watching.